Right. Right. So these two types of statistics have a very important role when you proceed to research next trimester. When you say descriptive research or descriptive statistics, that is used when your data is, or your question in the research is univariable. When you say univariable, which means one, variable which means your topic. So when you develop questions that are univariable in nature, meaning one variable only, that would mean that you're going to use descriptive statistics. On the other hand, if your question possesses variables that are more than one or two or more, descriptive stat is no longer applicable. It's going to be inferential statistics. So those are the two main branches or main types of two main types of statistics: the descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. And mas magandang matutunan nyo ngayon ito para pa nag-research kayo, mas madali nyo maintindihan kung anong ibig sabihin ng mga statement of the problem or objective, because the statistics is aligned with the research questions, especially if your research problem or research questions are quantitative in nature. If you're going to conduct a quantitative research, meaning to say that would require number, meaning to say you're going to use either descriptive or inferential statistics. So now, why study statistics? Because data are everywhere. Even in your own respective offices, you have voluminous data in front of you. No, if you want to make sense of them, if you want to treat them accordingly, then you have to have a good knowledge of statistics for you to make sense of the data that you have in your respective offices. Number two, statistical techniques are used to make many decisions that affect our lives. And statistics will tell us whether relationship exists, whether effects, impact, or influence are existing in our research paper, in our data, or whether there are differences, for example, in the responses of the different respondents. So these statistical techniques will lead us to make decisions eventually in formulating conclusions. And number three, no matter what your career, you will make professional decisions that will involve data for sure. No? An understanding of statistical methods that will help you make these decisions effectively. Sorry, wala ng F, no? So those are the reason why statistics is important. So the applications of stat concepts in the business world or in the public administration, pwede rin siya, no? For example, in the finance, we can do a correlation and regression, index numbers, and time series analysis. No? For marketing, hypothesis testing, pwede tayong gumawa ng mga chi-square tests and non-parametric tests. For those who are involved in handling personnel, personnel management, ganun din, hypothesis testing, chi-square test, non-parametric. I will explain that in further details later on siguro. And of course, in operating management, ganun din, we need to test the hypothesis, estimation, analysis of variance, and time series analysis. You will learn as we move forward that there are steps in hypothesis testing. Remember that when you do a research paper, you might develop hypotheses or hypotheses. And this hypothesis can only be solved using statistical treatment. No? For example, kung narinig yun yung sinasabi nating to reject or accept the null hypothesis, statistical treatment will guide you on the decision that you're going to make. So that is the application of statistical concepts in our field. And statistics is the science of collecting, organizing, present.
Hayaan mo siya, Gabriel.
Ayan. Organizing, presenting, analyzing, and interpreting data to assist in making more effective decisions. And statistical analysis is used to manipulate, summarize, and investigate data so that useful decision-making information results can be maximized. So meaning to say, it is suggested that when we make decisions in our own respective departments, there should be data. And this data that you have in your office are actually raw data. Raw data pa lang siya. But when we make sense of them using descriptive or inferential statistics, nagiging hindi na siya raw data, nagiging analyzed data na siya na pwede na natin gamitin for decision making. No? For example, if your topic is about human resource management, for example, or personnel management, and you would like to know whether human resource management is affecting the performance of the employees in your company, in the government sector, then you have an IBDV, no? Independent and dependent variable. By the way, when we say dependent variable, this is the variable or the topic that is dependent on the independent variable, no? And when we say naman independent variable, these are the causes, no? That causes and possible that will produce change in the dependent variable. All right? So cause and effect siya. Independent variable is the cause, dependent variable is the effect. That's why we call it a cause and effect or IVDV model. Independent variable and dependent variable model. So it is important that you know how to identify your data, and because those data can become sources of your topic for research. And this data must be analyzed properly using statistics. And as I've mentioned, there are a bunch of numbers, no? There are a bunch of data that you have in your offices, but I'm sure that they are still raw data. And for those data to be utilized, they must be processed using statistics. And as I've mentioned during our first meeting, the analysis or the processing of data during this pandemic or during this digital age is very easy. Why? Because there's no more manual computation. You will not be memorizing formula anymore, no? Yung meron ng mga memory gap, ay medyo pabor sa inyo ngayon ang statistics kasi meron na tayong tinatawag na softwares na magko-compute ng inyong statistics. All you need to do is just to gather the data and input them in the software. So that's the advantage of our technology right now. And as I've mentioned during my introduction, that there are two types of statistics. The first one is descriptive stat. This is what we call methods of organizing, summarizing, and presenting data in an informative way. So when we summarize and organize them, we use different statistical tools such as kung narinig yun yung mga mean, median, mode, standard deviation, quartile deviation, skewedness, kurtosis. So ang tawag doon ay descriptive statistics, no? Pag sinabi namang inferential statistics, this is the methods used to determine something about a population on the basis of a sample. And usually, when you make inferences, the requirement is dapat dalawa yung variables mo. Kaya nga inferences, inferent. You are making an inferences, no? Ibig sabihin, you are either comparing or correlating. So ginagamit natin ang inferential statistics when we compare, either compare or correlate. No, yun ang gamit ng inferential statistics. But it is important that when we do our statistics, We are also knowledgeable. So mga terminologies lang muna tayo ha, para basic, very basic muna to. Alam ko alam niyo na to, pero i-review lang natin, baka nakalimutan niyo lang, no? When we say population, we are talking about the entire set of individuals or objects of interest, or the measurements obtained from all individuals or objects of interest. Halimbawa, sa buong Pilipinas, meron tayong 7 sa sample lang to ha. Let's say sa sa Bulacan na lang, example, ang ating population ay mga 1 million, sample lang, Bulacan. That is the population. But if you want to get a subset of that population, ang tawag nyo ron is sample size. Sample. A portion or part of the population of interest. So when you do a research paper, and if your possible respondents or the population, if the population is too big or too large, you can chunk them into smaller size, no? You can chop them into smaller size, and that is through the use of sampling size, no, or sample size. And the beauty of the technology right now, again, there is a system wherein the computation of the sample size can be done using software. Hindi ka na magmamanual. Actually, noong mga unang panahon, seasoned statisticians would refer to Slovin's formula. Formula yon kung paano mag-derive ng sample. Pero ngayon, hindi ko na ituturo sa inyo yon kasi pagagamitin ko na kayo ng mga softwares, ituturo ko sa inyo yung mga softwares na pwedeng gamitin para malaman ninyo out of this big population, how many sample size is going to be utilized in your study. Parang ganon. And this is through the use of your software or internet. Ituturo ko yun sa ano. Lahat ngayon digital na ngayon, technological na ngayon. Kaya pinapadali ang buhay natin ng technology. Di katulad nung panahon ko, puro manual ang statistics namin noon. Nung panahon ko, nagmano-mano ako, nagme-memorize ako ng formula. No? Pero ngayon hindi mo kailangan mag-memorize ng formula. Kasi meron na tayong mga softwares. But what is important is that after the result, after the computation using the software, what is important is you know how to make sense of the computed data, computed result. So yun ang ituturo ko yun ang i-highlight ko sa ating research. Tuturuan ko kayo kung paano mag-analyze and interpret. Kasi madaling mag-process, kasi meron namang software, pero mas maganda kung alam natin kung paano magbigay ng meaning doon sa na-compute ng software na yon. Ituturo ko sa inyo yon, no? So those are the differences between descriptive and inferential. So lahat ng tests ay pag-aaralan natin. Yung binanggit kong descriptive stat, isa-isahin natin yun kung paano yun ginagawa using SPSS. And then inferential stat din, meron tayong mga R-test, Z-test, no? Meron tayong ANOVA, meron tayong chi-square, etc., etc. So i-discuss natin yun one by one, but not anymore the formula, but more on how to input in the software and compute the data using the software. And after computation, how to make sense, how do we analyze the computed data. Ayan, no? Ang tawag dyan is population and sample. Parang yung figure na to pinapakita lamang na with the very many population or the big population that you have in your possible research, this sampling technique, I will teach you sampling techniques on how to select sample from the population. So meaning to say, it is the general rule is that the sample represents the entire population. There should be a what we call representation. Kasi kung halimbawa 1,000 yan, tapos 5 lamang ang sumagot, hindi acceptable yun kasi those 5 respondents or data do not represent the entire 1,000 or 100 data. Dapat may scientific method in arriving at sample size, which I will teach you, no, in the future kung paano gamitin yung software na yon. So when we say inferential statistics, we are actually making estimations. Example, estimate the population mean weight using the sample mean weight, parang ganon. Pag sinabi namang hypothesis testing, we are testing, for example, the claim that the population mean weight is 70 kilogram. And when you say hypothesis testing, there are several steps. There are about 6 steps in hypothesis testing, which I will also discuss with you in the future kasi baka lumabas siya sa compre. Baka kasi lumabas siya sa compre ninyo, hypothesis testing, kaya dapat matutunan nyo kung paano mag-hypothesis testing. And that is part of inferential statistics. So again, when you hear the words estimation and hypothesis testing, that would mean to say that you are already making inferences. Inference is the process of drawing conclusions or making decisions about a population based on sample results. So dapat meron ka talagang scientific method in making a decision, no, based on the sample. So sampling, a sample should have the same characteristics as the population it is representing. Dapat meron tinatawag na normal distribution, no? Sampling can be with replacement or without replacement. Pag sinabi natin with replacement, a member of the population may be chosen more than once. Example, picking the candy from the bowl. Pag without replacement, a member of the population may be chosen only once using lottery ticket. So in the future, I will be teaching you more of the different sampling designs, no? Kasi meron tinatawag na probability and non-probability sampling designs. And I will teach you how to do that. When you see probability sampling design, probability, you are giving all the elements or the population the equal chances of being selected as your respondent. In short, hindi ka bias. Ang tawag doon ay probability sampling design. Pag sinabi namang non-probability, ito yung opposite. Kung kanina meron kang random selection, ngayon wala kang random selection doon sa tinatawag nating non-probability sampling design. So that is the difference between probability and non-probability, no? Ito yung sinasabi ko, random, each member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. Pero meron din tinatawag na non-random. Ginagamit lang ang non-random or non-probability sampling design if your research would utilize respondents or sample size or sample or respondents that are limited in size, limited in number. So pwede ka nang mag-non-random, pwede mo na silang kunin lahat. Or kaya nga may tinatawag minsan na purposive sampling. Ibig sabihin, when you select them, you have a purpose in selecting them. Halimbawa, you are in the MPA and you would like to know the best practices of, let's say, sabihin natin mga mayors in the Philippines. Best practices of mayors during the pandemic situation. So pag sinabing best practices, ito yung hindi naman lahat ng mayor merong best practices, no? Pipiliin lang natin, for example, yung merong mga achievements, no? Achievement sa kanilang public service. So ang gagawin natin doon, ang tawag doon is purposive sampling. Itong mga subjects mo or respondents mo, meron tinatawag na inclusion and exclusion criteria. So doon magkakaroon ng non-random. Pero kapag ang study mo ay random, everyone has an equal chance of being selected. And ang pinaka very good example nga nun is lottery, no? Kasi ang lottery ay pag-draw niyan ay each number has an equal chance to be drawn, no, from Ano bang tawag doon? Yung tambiolo na yon. So the actual process of sampling causes sampling error. Of course, there is what you call error, and that is normal. For example, the sample may not be large enough or representative of the population. Factors not related to the sampling process cause non-sampling errors. Kaya meron tinatawag na 0.05. Yung 0.05 actually is the margin of error. Ibig sabihin, when you use 0.05 as your margin of error or sampling error, you are ensuring that your study is 95% correct. No? And this is only applicable, this 0.05 sampling error is only applicable in social science researches, mga educational researches, or mga social science researches nga. Public admin, pwede to. But this is not applicable in medical research. Kaya ang ginagamit na error, margin of error sa mga medical research, mga 0.001 lang, mga 0.01. Kasi they have to be accurate. Medical doctors have to be 99.99% accurate, no? In terms of in conducting research, especially if the subject is human being, no? So, yun. So these are the different types of random sampling or probability sampling. One of them is what we call simple random sample. Each sample of the same size has an equal chance of being selected. Ang pinaka-common nito yung fishbowl technique. Meron kang fishbowl and then ilalagay mo ron yung mga pangalan ng mga possible na respondents and then bubunot ka lang. Para siyang lottery. Ang tawag doon ay simple random selection or technique. Meron din tinatawag na stratified sample. Divide the population into groups called strata and then take a sample from each stratum. So yung mga medical doctors dito can relate when I say para yung skin na merong different layers, no? May mga different stratum, may mga layers, may mga levels. So pwede kang mag-ganon. Kapag sobrang laki ng population, you can use this what we call stratified sampling. Halimbawa, you would like to conduct a study in Malolos, but Malolos and your respondents are for example are mothers, no, in Malolos. However, there are 51 barangays in Malolos, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. 51 barangays. So what you can do is to do a stratified sampling. Ibig sabihin, bawat barangay ay kukuha ka ng sample para well represented yung bawat barangay na yon. May mga stratum siya, no? On the other hand, the bigger size is what we call cluster sampling or cluster sample. You divide the population into strata and then randomly select some of the strata and then all the members from this strata are in the cluster sample. Pag sinabing cluster, this is bigger than stratified sample. And of course, the one that is commonly used is systematic sampling design. This is randomly selecting a starting point and take every n piece of data from a listing of the population. Halimbawa, ang total population is 400. Sample lang to, no? And then out of 400, lumabas dun sa computation natin that you only need 200 sample size. So 400 divided by 200 is
2.
2. O, so ibig sabihin, pwede mong gamitin yung 2 na yon sa systematic sampling. Ibig sabihin, from the 400 list of respondents, bibilang ka 1, 2, bilugan mo, yun ang first respondent mo. 3, 4, yun ang second respondent mo. 5, 6, yun ang, parang ganon. Meron kang sistema, kaya systematic random sampling ang pwede mong gamitin. So, any one of those sampling designs can be utilized if you would like to use probability random sampling or probability sampling design. So, kung kanina, we are talking about inferential, But when you say descriptive statistics, it is important that you are knowledgeable about the different activities that are involved in doing a descriptive stat. Unang-una, you collect data. Kaya nga, it is important that when you do a research, you will be guided by the questions, by the statement of the problem, by your objectives, no? Because these objectives, these questions will lead you to the collection of data. Ibig sabihin, kung ano lamang po yung tinatanong nyo sa research ninyo, yun lamang po yung kukolektahin ninyo, nothing more, nothing less. So that is one of the requirements in descriptive statistics. You collect the data using survey, and during this time of pandemic, face-to-face survey is not allowed. Kaya pwede kayong makipagtulungan sa ating mga IT kung paano gumawa ng Google Form. Google Form ang sikat ngayon kasi link lang yon na pwede mong ipadala sa GC at pwede nang sagutan ng mga respondents. Yun ang maganda ngayon. Hindi ka na babiyahe. Pwede ng Google Form. And actually, if you try to browse my YouTube channel, I have there a video lessons about how to develop tawag dito, a Google Form as your data gathering tool, online data gathering tool. Kung hindi na kaya, pwede magpatulong na lang sa isang IT. Meron naman tayong mga IT sa ating mga departamento na kayang-kayang gawin yan. But what is important, during this pandemic, face-to-face data collection is not allowed. Even CHED Chairman Prospero de Vera mentioned already that starting this 2021 onwards, flexible learning will be implemented. Ibig sabihin, walang face-to-face. Limited face-to-face is only allowed for courses like medicine, yung mga allied health sciences, yung mga kailangan ng yung kailangan pumunta sa laboratory, no? Kasi nga naman paano mapapag-aralan ng mga nurses mag-inject kung puro online. Kaya merong limited face-to-face but not for all courses. So again, to protect you and to avoid getting viruses outside, online survey na lang ginagamit natin. And may bago na naman tayong variant, no? Parang shampoo lang ang virus. Delta variant. No? Siguro lahat ng letters ay bubuin yan bago matapos yan. So of course, it is important after collecting the data, you present them. And one of the advantages of the software is that it can already provide you possible tables and graphs. Actually, even simple Excel application, ay pwede ka nang gumawa ng tables and graphs. But of course, kung gugustuhin nyo pa rin, pwede ko pa rin kayong turuan. Pwede ko bang malaman kung gusto niyo pa rin magpaturo kung paano gumawa ng mga tables and graphs that you can use for your research in the future? Paki-thumbs up nga po. Mag-check lang ako. Kasi the development of tables and graphs ay dapat according to American Psychological Association, the APA, and this time 7th style lang ginagamit. Maraming nag-thumbs up. Ibig sabihin, I will have one meeting wherein I will teach you how to develop tables and graphs according to American Psychological Association 7th edition. That is the latest edition that we have. And of course, when you collect data, you summarize them. Itong formula na to, lang yan, design lang yan. But of course, this time, software nang gagamitin natin for the computation of descriptive statistics. So the collection of data that are relevant to the problem, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, na you do not just collect data. You must be guided by the statement of the problem or objectives of your research paper. Kaya nga maganda na nauna to para pag nag-research kayo next trimester, sadly, ako na naman ang teacher niyo sa research. Unfortunately, Ako yung magiging facilitator ng research. Pero there is a connection between research and statistics. And it is important that the collection of the data should be relevant to the problem being studied, no? Dapat naka-align siya. Kung ano yung problem mo, yun ang sasagutin mo sa statistics, no? It may be difficult, expensive, and time-consuming, pero yan ay nung mga unang panahon pa. Yung time-consuming and difficult. Kasi nga, meron na ngayong softwares. Pero ng mga unang panahon, pag sinabing numbers, ewan ko ba, pag sinabing numbers, marami ang may ayaw sa numbers. Parang hate nila ang numbers. Ayaw nila ng mga algebra, ng mga calculus, ng mga statistics, no? And thanks to technology, pinapadali na ngayon ang computation ng numbers, no? Kaya lang minsan tinatanong ko sila kung bakit ayaw nila ng numbers, kasi daw hirap-hirap sila sa pag-iintindi ng numbers. So, tas niloloko ko na lang minsan, sabi ko, ayaw mo sa number, tinanong ba yung number kung gusto ka rin niya? Baka ayaw rin sa'yo ng number. Joke ko lang siya nung nagtanong siya sa akin ng gano'n. But we have no option but to really understand the statistics. This time, understanding na lang kailangan natin. Wala nang computing kasi nga meron na software na ginagamit. And statistical data are usually obtained by counting or measuring items. And when we talk about data, they are categorized into two. We have the primary data and secondary data. Primary data are actually data that you personally collected. You call it primary data. You're the one who collected the data. On the other hand, when you say secondary data, the data are already available, but you're going to use them for your research, and you will ask permission from the owner of the data, and then that becomes secondary data. And speaking of data, we must be very careful in collecting data because there is what we call Data Privacy Act. No, we must be careful in divulging or presenting any information, data, especially if the data are personal, sensitive, and medical in nature. That is against the National Privacy Commission or the Data Privacy Act. So, yun ang difference ng primary data and secondary data. Halimbawa, ano bang halimbawa ng data nyo sa opisina? Halimbawa, contribution sa SSS. Tapos, tapos kailangan mo yon, yung general data contribution. Pero hindi ikaw may hawak ng data na yon, hihingin mo doon sa owner. Ang tawag doon secondary data yon. Pero kapag gumawa ka ng Google form, nagpa-survey ka about let's say accountability or ethical leadership or situational leadership of our leaders. Gumawa ka ng Google form para sa iyong data gathering. That is an example of primary data. Nakuha niyo po ba ang difference ng dalawa? So, mas madali ang primary data kasi ikaw mismo mangongolekta. Pero kapag yung data ay available na, you will just write a letter to the data owner, and then if you will be permitted, then the data can be given to you. Kaya nga lang, because of the NPC, last 2012 Data Privacy Act, we need to take good care of our data. Kasi once na yun ay lumabas ng walang permission ng may-ari ng data, violation po yun ng Data Privacy Act. A variable is an item of interest that can take on many different numerical values. And there's this what you call, pag sinabing variable, item of interest, ito yung topic mo, no? Yung sinasabi ko kaninang dependent or independent variables, that are measurable, especially if your study is a quantitative research. Usually numerical siya. May mga numerical values. Kung narinig nyo na yung word na Likert scale, yung Likert scale na 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 or 4, 3, 2, 1, parang ganon. So variable yon. A constant has a fixed numerical value. There's such thing as constant number. No? Usually sa mga formula, mayroong mga constant yan. But we will not delve on that topic anymore kasi nga meron na tayong tinatawag na mga softwares na pwede natin gamitin. Okay? So, any question? Any question? Hindi ko muna pinahaba yung aking discussion ngayon kasi alam ko yung iba ay nagkakaroon ng interruption sa power supply, internet connection dahil maulan, mahangin. So nagkakaproblema na sa connection ng iba. So I think that is an introduction to statistics. Parang nag-refresh lang muna tayo ng mga basic terminologies that are being used in statistics. Later on, i-discuss na natin isa-isa. Iisa-isay na natin kung ano yung laman ng descriptive, kung ano yung mga inferential, and then ang pinakadulo natin would be, of course, di pala pinakadulo. Second to the last topic would be how to analyze the computed data. At ang pinakadulo natin is how to use softwares, different softwares that will facilitate, that will help you in data computation, no? So, yun ang mga next topics natin. Any question? Yan pinasimple ko lang yung discussion para hindi kayo masyado ma-stress. Kasi naririnig ko may mental health problem daw yung iba dahil sa mga nangyayari sa kapaligiran. May mga internet connection problem, sumuulan, may mga baha, no? So, do you have any clarifications or question regarding the topic that we discussed today? Was the discussion clear naman?
Okay lang.
Meron bang napulot na bago sa ating discussion? Meron ba kayong nakuwang bagong knowledge or dati nyo nang alam yon? Siyempre, galing tayo sa college, kaya tawag dito, napag-aralan na natin yon. Nire-review na lang natin ngayon. Ang kaibahan lang, if you notice, I keep on relating statistics to research. Para pa nag-research kayo next trimester, hindi kayo magugulat dun sa mga terminologies na gagamitin natin sa research. Kasi some of the terminologies of research are also lifted from statistics, no? Kaya nga ang research and statistics ay magka-partner yan. Hindi ka pwede makabuo ng research without understanding statistics. And vice versa, hindi ka rin naman pwede makagawa ng statistical competition kung wala kang ginagawang research. Dapat may research ka muna. Dapat gagawa ka muna ng questions, ng mga specific problems para meron kang guide doon sa i-gather mong data, no? So siguro para hindi kayo masyadong ma-stress this trimester, magbibigay lang ako siguro ng isang case analysis as part of your requirement rather, as part of your requirement at siguro sa mga last part na yun ng ating last part ng ating klase na yon. Parang bibigyan ko kayo ng case and then you will analyze the case, no? Pero before you do that, before I give you that assignment, ituturo ko muna kung paano mag-case analysis, kung paano mag-interpret ng data, mag-analyze ng data. And then afterwards, ang pinaka-final output nyo, I'll give you a case and then I will ask you to analyze the case po. No? Sige. Magbabasa ako ng mga comments kung meron tanong. Sira yung laptop ng anak ko ngayon. Kaya okay lang. Sige. No question. Clear and simple. No question so far. Clear, 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 clear. Bakit puro clear? Walang head and shoulders. Salamat ulit sa inyo. Okay. Clear, clear. Google Form po ba ang isang tool na ituturo ninyo sa amin para kumuha ng statistics? Google Form is our platform in gathering data. No? Na instead of serving the data gathering tool or questionnaire, ang Google Form po ngayon ay ginagamit para mapadali yung pag-gather mo ng data. No? Yung mga, ewan ko kung na-try nyo na, kahit yung sa kahit yung sa bakuna, sino ba rito nagpa-vaccine na? Bago kayo na-vaccinate, di ba, may online registration. Yung registration yun actually is a variant of Google Form. That is almost the same as Google Form. Pag giningan ka ng mga information using online, Google Form din po yun. Sir Dennis, sasagot ko ba yung tanong mo? Okay, sige. Very clear. Okay, yeah. Okay. So, ibig sabihin, karamihan ng comment ay okay naman. And this is recorded para dun sa mga hindi maka-attend. I understand, meron tayong mga medical doctors na classmate, no? Na baka naka-duty or baka busy. So for the purpose again of reviewing, ipo-post ko na lang ito sa ating GC para yung mga hindi man naka-attend ay makapag-catch up kung anong diniscuss natin. So our topic next meeting is about descriptive statistics, no? Ituturo ko sa inyo kung ano yung mga statistics under descriptive, and actually pwede ko nang pag may time pa at hindi nagloloko ang internet kasi baka biglang mawala ng internet sa panahon ngayon, medyo mahangin kasi. Baka ituro ko na rin kung paano gamitin ang SPSS sa pagko-compute ng descriptive statistics. At kung may time din, baka ituro ko rin yung kung paano gamitin ng Excel. I'm sure you're familiar with that, on how to compute the different descriptive statistical tools or treatment rather. Okay, so kung wala nang tanong, maybe have a copy of the handout for reference. Itong PowerPoint. Yung ito recorded naman tong video, pwede kong i-upload sa ating sa ating GC. Pwede naman. Yeah, sure, no problem. So do you have questions? No more? Okay, so mukhang absent ang ating main photographer. Nandito ba si Chief? Wala, hindi ko siya napansin, si Chief Rod. O sino ngayon ang ating Vice Chief? Sino ang kukuha ng picture ng bawat gallery view?
Sir, hindi rin po stable yung ko po sa cellphone po ako nakaka-connect lang. Yung po sa PC ko, sir. Mayat-maya, sir, na-disconnect po hindi ko po kayo makuhaan ng lahat, sir.
All right. O sino na lang ang may magandang stable na connection para dun sa picture, and then pa-upload na lang sa GC natin. Kasi sa akin merong 5 panels. So ibig sabihin sino ba naka-laptop ngayon na maayos ang internet? Sino? Siguro si Conti.
Chua po. Rafael Chua.
Rafael Chua daw. Sir Rafael, you are nominated to become the photographer of the night, of the afternoon. Okay sa'yo, Sir Rafael? Okay daw. Sige. Open your camera and Sir Rafael will take pictures of our gallery view for documentation purposes. Sir Rafael, sabihin mo sa amin pagtapos na ha, kasi baka mangalay yung aming mga yung mga aming mga labi kang ngingiti, tapos na pala ngiti kami ng ngiti. Ano nangyari, Sir Rafael? Pwede ka magsalita para malaman namin kung ano na nangyayari. Naka-off ang audio mo. Ay, off ba? Hindi ka namin marinig.
Rafi, mag-back up ako, Rafi.
Sige, backup. Buti na lang may backup si Rafi.
Hello? Ayan po. Wait lang po.
Yan, okay.
Cynthia, Haniel, tsaka si Miss Erlinda De Leon. Hindi pa po naka-open yung cam.
Yan yung pinaka-attendance niyo for today, ha?
Okay po.
Yes, si James nagtatry.
Rafi, marami pang naka-off.
Marami rin naka-off. Baka yung iba, tawag dito, baka si
Ay, yung wala pong siguro, mahina ang connection.
Okay lang yun. Basta mahalaga yung name nila ay full. Para
Yes po, okay po.
Tatlong screenshot po.
Tatlong screenshots. All
Yes.
right. Okay lang.
Okay na po.
Tapos na?
Yes po.
Sige. Kung wala nang tanong, thank you once again and hope to see you next time for another discussion and mag-iingat po kayo palagi. Goodbye everyone.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doc.
Ingat kayo.
Thank you po, Doc.
Thank you, Doc, sa lahat.
Thank you po.
Thank you. Ingat.
Ingat namin.